For decades, we've all heard the story of the Indian IT industry. It's been held up as one of the world's great economic miracles, right? A story of success, of global ambition, and the creation of this massive, thriving middle class. But what if that story, the one we all think we know, isn't really the whole picture? Let's dive into why the very foundation of this celebrated industry, well, it might just be cracking. I mean, the scale of this thing is just staggering. We're talking about 5.5 million people working directly in IT. But when you count their families, the number of people whose lives have been totally transformed by this boom is closer to 20 million. These are the people who power India's consumer economy. They're buying the cars, the apartments, and filling the restaurants in cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Pune, cities that IT basically built from the ground up into these massive megacities. And yet, here's the really provocative argument at the heart of our explainer today. The source material claims that for all its incredible success, the Indian IT sector never really built innovators. It built a massive, skilled, but ultimately replaceable workforce of IT laborers. And that right there, that's the central illusion we're going to unpack. So how did we even get here? How did India become the world's go-to back office? To really get why the industry is in crisis today, we have to first understand the business model that powered its incredible rise. A model that, it turns out, also planted the seeds of its own downfall. It all boils down to this one really simple but incredibly powerful idea: cost arbitrage. See, Western companies figured out they could get the exact same programming or support tasks done in India for just a tiny fraction of the cost. A $100,000 job in the US could be done for maybe $10,000, $20,000 in India. For companies like TCS, Infosys, and Wipro, this was pure rocket fuel. I mean, it was an unbeatable deal. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. It's the fundamental difference in what was being sold. Over on the right, you've got the global giants, Apple, Google. They sell products. They sell intellectual property, iPhones, Google Search, you name it. But on the left, the Indian IT model, it wasn't selling a product. It was selling time. Billable hours for coding, for testing, for maintenance. It was a service model, not a product model. And that's a world of difference. Now, the source uses some really harsh metaphors to drive this point home. Code coolies, comparing these highly skilled engineers to old-time railway porters who just carry loads. Or even IT's MNREGA laborers, which is a reference to a government rural jobs program known for purely manual, repetitive work. The point, however brutal, is that the entire focus was on completing the tasks you were given, not on creating anything new. And look, for 30 years, this model worked beautifully. It was a money-printing machine. But that whole comfortable world, that sandcastle as the source calls it, is now being absolutely flattened by two massive waves of disruption. These twin tsunamis are dismantling the very foundation of that cost arbitrage model. The first tsunami is the one you've heard all about: artificial intelligence. This isn't some sci-fi movie concept anymore. AI is here, and it turns out it's ridiculously good at doing the exact kind of routine, entry-level work that was the bread and butter of the Indian IT services industry for decades. Just think about it for a second. The basic coding, the repetitive software testing, pulling simple reports, these were the first jobs for millions of young engineers. AI can now do a huge chunk of that work faster, cheaper, and frankly, with fewer mistakes. The need for this massive army of human coders, it's shrinking every single day. And if AI wasn't a big enough problem, here comes the second tsunami: the rise of global capability centers, or GCCs. This is basically when the big Western giants, think Google, Apple, Morgan Stanley, they decide to just cut out the middleman. Instead of outsourcing to an Indian IT firm, they just say, you know what, we'll open our own office in India and hire the best people directly. And this slide right here shows you exactly why GCCs are such a massive threat. I mean, put yourself in the shoes of a talented engineer. Where would you rather work? As a contractor for a third-party company doing maintenance, or as a direct employee at Google doing research and development on their next huge product? Oh, and for about 20% more pay. It's easy choice, right? The very best talent is getting poached, and that leaves the traditional firms in a really tough spot. So this isn't some far-off theoretical problem. The 1-2 punch of AI and GCCs is having a real, tangible, and honestly painful impact on the industry right now. The cracks are definitely showing, and people are really starting to feel the pressure. The numbers, well, they tell a pretty stark story. Jobs at these new GCCs are growing at a blistering 27% a year. And in the traditional IT firms, a tiny 5%. This chart shows you exactly where the future of tech jobs in India is headed. It's not even a contest. And the flip side of that slow growth is this. Tata Consultancy Services, TCS, one of the absolute giants of the industry, has actually reduced its workforce by 3,000 people in just the last 6 months. This isn't just a slowdown, it's a contraction. The jobs are literally starting to disappear. And inside these companies, the source describes this growing climate of fear. Salaries are frozen. Employees are living with this constant anxiety of getting that dreaded pink slip. And there's this new tactic being used called a voluntary exit, where management basically pressures you to resign, and they might threaten to mess up your record if you don't, all so it doesn't have to look like a layoff on their books. It's pretty grim. So, this brings us to the final critical question. The old model is broken. The industry is standing at a crossroads, and it's facing a choice that is both incredibly simple and unbelievably difficult. Innovate or perish. That's it. The path of selling cheap labor is coming to a dead end. The most important thing here is a fundamental shift in mindset. It's about moving away from the old labor mindset, just follow instructions, bill for your time, don't take any risks, and moving towards a product mindset, where you're creating new solutions, building valuable intellectual property, and actually embracing the risks that come with real innovation. And this is what that shift actually looks like. It means developing a completely new set of skills, because the jobs of the future aren't in basic coding anymore. They're in these high-value roles like AI auditing, prompt engineering, and AI product management. The demand for people who are fluent in AI and the cloud is absolutely massive, but this requires a massive reskilling of the existing workforce. It's not just an update, it's a complete system reboot. The source wraps up the whole situation with this really powerful image. For 30 years, Indian IT built this impressive sandcastle on the beach of cost arbitrage. It seemed so solid, almost permanent. But then the twin tsunamis of AI and GCCs finally hit the shore, and that sandcastle, it just washed away. And so we end here. The model that created prosperity for 20 million people, it's over. An entire generation built their lives on that foundation. But with the end of one era, a new one has to begin. The billion-dollar question for the entire country isn't just what comes next, but how does India transform its greatest asset, its people, from being the world's back office into the world's innovation lab?